Havana. Prepare to attack. Select your hero.
Quit screwing around and get ready to move.
This will restore you. Attack commences in 30 seconds.
It is not my preference to see tomatoes personally, but I will see them done.
Hello. Enemy turret ahead.
Enemy turret ahead. Falling with me.
Now traveling to Busan. Select your hero.
I will strike our enemies where they do not the objective. Gather at this position. Enemy turret ahead. Looks dangerous. Enemy has here. Enemy turret taken. I am ready. Chronal accelerator. I'm sure I can do this. To all agents to all agents of Overwatch. That's not right. To the former agents of Overwatch. This is Winston. Obviously. 30 years ago, the Omnics declared war. The nations of the world had no answer until they called upon a small group of heroes. Overwatch was created to rescue humanity from the Omnic crisis. We became greatest champions of peace and progress mankind has ever seen. You were chosen because we made you. You joined because you already look. The people decide.
First of all, I want to say Alhamdulillah, God gave me everything. Alhamdulillah. I know you got this, don't like this. Alhamdulillah. Tomorrow night, I'm gonna smash your boy, guys. I'm gonna smash your boy.
Again, full mount, back mount.
There's the choke.
He's got it, it's under the neck.
There it is.
Nope, it's on the chin.
There's the tap. Still undisputed. Khabib Nurmagomedov has finished Conor McGregor.
And Alhamdulillah, undisputed, undefeated UFC lightweight champion. Thank you so much. And I told you guys, everything I'm gonna change 6 October, and I do this. Alhamdulillah, thank you so much.
Khabib, can you talk about the fight before the brawl?
A couple of weeks ago, I did a video ranking every prominent UK football pundit based on their ability as players. Except for Jamie Carragher. I missed out Jamie Carragher. The top comment and probably the most requested video since then has been for me to do a similar video, but for the 20 current Premier League managers. The standard of football and managing at the highest level has actually decreased in recent decades, as it has been shown that there is very little correlation between someone's talents on and off the pitch. Whilst world-class players like Diego Maradona and Paul Gascoigne have made pretty shoddy managers, comparative cloggers on the pitch like Jose Mourinho and Luis Felipe Scolari have enjoyed plenty of success. As with the pundits video, the players are ranked on their talent, not just the number of trophies or caps they won. Here is my ranking of every Premier League manager based on their ability as players. Roy Hodgson. Getting us started as the worst player currently managing in the Premier League, we have to go for Roy Hodgson. An excellent manager, particularly at a club like Crystal Palace, where the expectations aren't as great as say Liverpool or England, Hodgson is also the oldest manager in the Premier League at 72. His playing days actually began at Crystal Palace, but he was never able to break into the first team. Hodgson only ever played non-league football at senior level, most notably for Tonbridge and Gravesend and Northfleet, completing his coaching qualifications at 23 and retiring from playing at 28. Brendan Rodgers. Brendan Rodgers was actually pretty highly thought of in Ireland as a youth team player representing Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland at schoolboy level. Having impressed as a junior at Ballymena United, he joined Reading aged 17. At the age of 20, however, before he had the chance to make his senior debut, Rodgers was forced to retire from professional football due to a genetic knee condition. He did spend 3 years playing non-league football before retiring altogether, and unfortunately, we can't justify ranking him any higher than 19th. Daniel Farke. A man who can seemingly do no wrong at Norwich City, Daniel Farke's managerial career has already far outstripped his playing days, even at the age of 42. The vast majority of Farke's playing days were split between 3 separate spells with SV Lipstad. A forward, Farke spent his entire career as an amateur, although mostly in the 4th tier, which is the highest amateur level of football in Germany. Dean Smith. Aston Villa manager and fan Dean Smith spent 2 seasons in the 2nd tier of English football, suffering relegation on both occasions, 3 seasons in the 3rd tier, and the other 13 seasons of his career in the 4th tier. It was a fairly unremarkable career for the lower league stalwart, who never won promotion as a player but did bag over 50 goals and was once Hereford United United's record signing, so 17th is fair. Chris Wilder. Dean Smith and Chris Wilder both won promotion from the Championship with their boyhood clubs last season and both played lower league football throughout their careers as defenders. Wilder was a right back and he spent 6 years as a bit part player at Bramall Lane, making 93 appearances in that time and going out on loan 4 times. He later settled at Rotherham United, where he spent 4 years and played more football than he would anywhere else, registering 132 third-tier appearances. Eddie Howe. Anyone who witnessed long-time Bournemouth boss Eddie Howe in action knows that he was actually quite a classy centre-back, and injuries prevented him from featuring higher in this list. Ultimately, Howe spent virtually his entire career at Bournemouth, playing 200 games for the club in the 2nd Division before joining 1st Division Portsmouth in March 2002. He suffered an awful knee injury on his debut that would sideline him for almost 2 years, at which point he returned to Bournemouth, where he spent 3 more seasons in the 3rd tier. Graham Potter. With our 7th entry in this list, we have our first player to have played top-flight football, albeit only briefly. Graham Potter played 8 times for Southampton in the Premier League in 1996-97 in what was his only season with the club. The Solihull native also played over 100 second-tier matches for Birmingham City, Stoke City and West Brom, but played more games for then 3rd Division side York City than any other team. Sean Dyche. For anyone who never saw Sean Dyche play, it won't surprise you to know that he was a real no-nonsense centre-back. He came through the youth ranks under Brian Clough at Nottingham Forest, but an early leg break, which left him with a permanent bend in his leg, meant he never registered a first-team appearance for the club. He went on to spend 7 years in the 4th and 3rd tiers at Chesterfield, later playing plenty of 2nd-tier football with Millwall and Watford. Marco Silva. Up into 12th, and I bet not many of you ever saw Marco Silva during his playing days. I know I certainly didn't. During a 15-year career, the Portuguese fullback played just 2 Primeira Liga games, spending the bulk of his career with Estoril in the 2nd tier. He retired aged 34 to become Estoril boss, where he did a magnificent job, and I still think that he's a really good manager. Jurgen Klopp. From one Merseyside manager to another, there's not much to split Marco Silva and Jurgen Klopp's playing days. Klopp himself has said that he had 4th division feet with a 1st division head, and the consequences were that the towering German spent virtually his entire career in the 2nd tier with Mainz. He went on to take over managerial reins at Mainz, thus beginning a terrifically entertaining and rather successful managerial career up to this point. Unai Emery. Wikipedia describes Unai Emery's playing career as modest, and that is probably a fair description. Primarily a left winger, the current Arsenal boss began his career at Real Sociedad, and it was there that he made his only handful of top-flight appearances. Emery went on to play 215 games in the Segunda Division for the likes of Toledo, Racing Ferrol and Leganes, before retiring and turning his attention to management aged 32. Ralph Hasenhüttl. The first international to feature in this video, it's actually quite difficult to rank Ralph Hasenhüttl among other Premier League bosses. He scored prolifically in Austria and was capped by his country, but struggled in the tougher German Bundesliga. Hasenhüttl scored 44 goals in 134 games for Austria Vienna, where he spent 5 seasons, but managed just 3 in 44 for Cologne and ended his career playing for Bayern Munich too. Nuno Espirito Santo. A member of the Portuguese squad as recently as Euro 2008, Nuno Espirito Santo never actually won a full cap for Portugal, although he was their number 1 when they finished 4th at the 1996 Olympics. Born on the African island of São Tomé and Príncipe, Santo was a talented goalkeeper who spent the majority of his career playing second fiddle to even more gifted goalkeepers. That was the case for him at Deportivo La Coruña and at both of his stints with Porto, registering just 14 league appearances in 5 years with the Portuguese Giants. He still has a Champions League trophy, 4 Premier League titles, and 1 goal to his name as a player, and deservedly, he takes 8th here. Javi Gracia. Following a terrific debut campaign at Watford, Javi Gracia has enjoyed a difficult start to his 2nd season at Vicarage Road, where managers tend not to stick around for too long. During his playing days, Gracia was a dependable defensive midfielder who starred in both La Liga and the Segunda Division. His best years were spent with Real Valladolid, Real Sociedad and Villarreal, although the former Spanish under-21 international never won a senior cap. Manuel Pellegrini. The 2nd oldest manager in the Premier League, Manuel Pellegrini, had a very good playing career, but he still had a much more distinguished managerial career. A one-club man, Pellegrini spent his entire 13-year career with Universidad de Chile, but it was a torrid period by the club's usually high standards, as they won just 1 Copa Chile. Pellegrini won 28 caps for Chile as a centre-back, playing alongside the great Elias Figueroa, and the former Premier League winner takes 6 for me. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. There's a step up in class as we enter the top 5, starting with Manchester United great Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Immortalised by that one moment in Barcelona against Bayern Munich, that was just 1 of 126 goals Solskjaer scored for the Red Devils. Nicknamed the baby-faced assassin, Solskjaer was a predatory goal-getter who garnered a reputation as a bit of a super sub under Sir Alex Ferguson. The 6-time Premier League winner also bagged 23 goals from 67 caps for Norway, and he is of course now the first-team boss at Old Trafford. Mauricio Pochettino. The man who some of you may recall gave away a penalty and had a header cleared off the line as England exacted some revenge over Argentina at the 2002 World Cup, that was 1 of 20 caps that Mauricio Pochettino won for Argentina. The long-haired centre-back spent 5 years with each of Newell's Old Boys and Espanyol, before spending a couple of years at PSG and later returning to Espanyol, where he ended his career. A top-flight player for his entire career, Pochettino's only league titles came in Argentina, but he did win a couple of Copa del Rey's at Espanyol. Steve Bruce. Remarkably, we have an uncapped player in 3rd place, although Steve Bruce was actually offered an England cap but turned it down, since he felt it was a token gesture and had no interest in a sort of sympathy cap. Bruce wasn't the most naturally gifted footballer, hence why it took him until the age of 25 to start playing top-flight football, but boy did he make the most of the talents at his disposal. Enthusiastic, aggressive, and actually pretty assured in the pass, Bruce was a really solid centre-back, but also a prolific goalscorer thanks to his heading ability and a knack for scoring from the spot. He actually scored 113 goals over the course of his career, which isn't that far off Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's record, and the 3-time Premier League winner once bagged an incredible 19 goals in a single season. Pep Guardiola. Pep Guardiola was an immensely talented footballer who was a key man in Barcelona's dream team at the age of 20. Johan Cruyff had moved Guardiola from the role of right winger to pivot in Barca's youth team, and it was there that he would flourish in the first team. Cruyff loved Pep, and Pep loved Cruyff, and Cruyff's ideals would rub off on the young Spaniard in terms of both his playing and managerial career. a slim and technical deep-line playmaker, Guardiola captained both Barcelona and Spain, but did struggle with niggling injuries and was never quite as effective following Cruyff's Barca departure. He went on to play for Brescia and Roma in Italy, and deservedly ranks as the second best player now managing in the Premier League. Frank Lampard. It would be very easy for me to go for Pep Guardiola in first and Frank Lampard in second to show you all how cultured and clever I am. After all, Guardiola did make Johan Cruyff's all-time 11 alongside the likes of Pelé and Maradona. Guardiola was a very clever footballer and brilliant as a pivot during the 1990s at Barca, but Frank Lampard was still the better player. It's very possible that Pep Guardiola's career would have looked rather different if he hadn't been spotted by Johan Cruyff at the Mini Estadio, but Frank Lampard would have been a success at any club under any manager. A world-class box-to-box or attacking midfielder, Lampard was a first-class professional and trainer, a remarkably intelligent footballer, and the most productive midfielder in the final third of the Premier League era. He scored over 300 goals for club and country from midfield, and his 211 strikes for Chelsea, making the Blues all-time record scorer. He also topped the Premier League assist charts thrice, won 3 Premier League titles, the Champions League, came second in Ballon d'Or voting, and won more than 100 caps for England. That's it for today's video. Congratulations on making it to the end of the video. Since you've got this far, and in exchange for eternal good luck and happiness,
Alright, let's take a look at the most overrated footballer from every year stretching back to 2002 until the present day. 2002, El Hadji Diouf. Pelé would have made a hilarious pundit. But imagine if you're the greatest footballer that ever lived, winning World Cups before you're even out of your teens, that you might actually have an eye for a good player. No. When Pelé was asked to pick his 100 best players in the world back in 2002, he included the likes of Nicky Butt, Hong Myung-bo, and God help us all, El Hadji Diouf. Yes, he might have had a good World Cup run with Senegal, knocking out France in the groups, but Christ above, this man is an absolute stain on the sport. He tricked Liverpool into signing him, with the Reds inexplicably choosing him over Nicolas Anelka, and all he'd do there was spit at teenagers.
Hello and welcome back to Football Daily, where today we're covering the 10 worst pieces of football business. Here we go. 10. Eto'o for Zlatan. The first of 2 appearances for Samuel Eto'o on our list, the Cameroonian forward unexpectedly found himself unwanted at Barcelona in 2009, after 5 years with the Catalans. In that time, he topped 25 league goals on 3 occasions, scored 130 in 199 matches, and won 3 titles and 2 Champions Leagues. His final year at Barcelona was Pep Guardiola's first, and he dovetailed brilliantly with Thierry Henry and Lionel Messi, hitting 36 in all competitions, including 1 in the Champions League final, to help the Blaugrana to the treble, the first in Spanish football history. But Pep was keen to strengthen the squad and decided to use Eto'o as a bargaining chip in a deal for Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who had been Serie A's top scorer with Inter that season. Guardiola swapped his striker and €46 million to bring the Swede to Catalonia, but fell out with him almost instantly, returning him to Italy after 1 year. Zlatan did lift 5 trophies in Barcelona, but the only major one was the league title, while Eto'o adapted brilliantly to Italian football, winning the Champions League, Serie A and Coppa Italia to become the first and so far only man in history to win back-to-back trebles. 9. 8 more years. Newcastle fans have been through the mill in recent years. Bought by millionaire Mike Ashley for $135 million in 2007, the Magpies have gone through 12 managers since, and have been relegated twice. They've only finished in the top half of the Premier League on 2 occasions, but one of those came in 2012. When Alan Pardew guided them to an amazing 5th place finish. Newcastle finished above Chelsea, who won that season's Champions League, thanks to a Senegalese strike force of Demba Ba and Papi Cissé, who scored 29 league goals between them. Pardew was named manager of the season, the first Newcastle boss to achieve that, and was rewarded for his success with a new 8-year contract, despite still having 4 years left to run on his deal. But it turned out Pardew was not a tactical genius. The next year he presided over Newcastle's biggest loss to local rival Sunderland in 34 years, and over the following 2 campaigns the club lost fully half of their Premier League matches. A website was started to call for his departure, while 30,000 flyers were handed out at games promoting the cause. He eventually left for Crystal Palace with the squad in tatters, and relegation followed a year and a half later. 8. Liverpool and Robbie Keane. Throughout a 20-year career in football, Robbie Keane has scored everywhere he's gone, except Inter Milan and Liverpool. The Nerazzurri barely gave him a chance, ditching the Irishman after 6 months. but that wasn't enough to put off Liverpool, who swooped for Keane in 2008. Then 28, the striker had scored 105 goals in the Premier League and had reached double figures in the Prem in 6 consecutive seasons with Spurs. The Reds handed over £19 million for his services. However, with Fernando Torres and Dirk Kuyt firing up front, Keane was shifted out to the left wing by Rafa Benitez, a position he had never played before. As a result, it took 11 games and 688 minutes for him to get on the scoresheet for the Scousers, and he would end up hitting just 7 goals in 28 appearances. After 189 days, Benitez sold Keane back to Spurs for £12 million, meaning that every day he spent at the club, he cost them £37,000. Keane went on to success with Celtic and LA Galaxy, winning 3 MLS Cups, while Benitez saw Liverpool slip from title challengers to 7th place. He departed 8 months after Keane. 7. Fulham, Magath and Mitroglou. As recently as 2010, Fulham were flying. They reached the final of the Europa League under Roy Hodgson, losing to an Atletico Madrid side featuring Diego Forlan and Sergio Aguero, and were regulars in the top half of the table. But achievement breeds expectation, and Shahid Khan, who paid around £150 million for the club in 2010, sacked 2 coaches within 7 months of taking over, quickly tipping the side into a relegation battle. Khan brought in Felix Magath, who had been out of the game for 2 years, but had taken Bayern Munich and Wolfsburg to Bundesliga titles, and backed the manager with a £12 million move for Olympiacos striker Kostas Mitroglou. The Greek had 41 in 92 in his homeland, but he played just 3 times for the Cottagers, while Magath's unorthodox methods alienated the squad. He told Breda Hangeland that putting cheese on a knee injury would reduce the swelling, and would call players into his office only to stare at them wordlessly for minutes on end. With Mitroglou written off as an expensive bust, he returned to Olympiacos, where he got 19 in 33, before switching to Benfica, where he scored 36 in 60 and won a pair of titles. Magath lost 12 of his 20 games in charge at Fulham, taking them down to the Championship and conceding more than 2 goals a game. He most recently coached Shandong Luneng in China. 6. Giuseppe Reina's houses. Giuseppe Reina sounds like an Italian Pepe Reina impersonator, but he was actually a German forward who, except for a year with Hertha Berlin, spent his entire career in the region of North Rhine-Westphalia, where he was born. He spent 4 seasons with Borussia Dortmund, winning the title in 2002 alongside Thomas Rositzky and Jens Lehmann. But it was his spell at Arminia Bielefeld which brought the striker to national attention. When he signed for Arminia, who were then in the Bundesliga, Reina negotiated a contract agreement that the club would build him a new house for every year he remained in Bielefeld. It sounded like an incredible deal, but the player foolishly forgot to specify the type of house in the deal, so Arminia simply built him one out of Lego in each of his 3 seasons. And Arminia had previous with strange contracts. A year after Reina arrived, they were able to sign keeper George Koch on a free from PSV Eindhoven. The stopper, who had been in the Netherlands just 3 months, had an agreement with the club that if he suffered any anti-German abuse at any time, he could walk out of his contract for nothing. It took under 100 days, and he subsequently joined Arminia, helping them return to the top flight after a relegation. 5. Blackpool. Blackpool's promotion to the Premier League in 2010 came as a shock to everyone. At the time, the club's stadium had a stand missing, having demolished it in 2003 with the intention of redeveloping the site. The club's training ground was so bad, with outdoor toilets and no hot water, that manager Ian Holloway said he would never use it again, a promise he broke immediately when it became clear the facilities would not be improved. Meanwhile, to celebrate promotion, club chairman Owen Oyston paid himself £11 million, the highest salary in the Premier League. Holloway's stewardship in the top flight was entertaining and unpredictable, with the club scoring 55 goals, the 10th best record in the league, while conceding 78, the worst defence in the division. The Tangerines did the double over Liverpool and beat Spurs, but conceded 3 or more goals in 15 of their 38 matches. Oyston's huge salary left the club no money to spend, and they finished 19th and returned to the Championship. The lack of money saw the squad shrink to just 6 people, as players were offered contracts with reduced wages, while Robbie Fowler turned down a proposal of £100 a week to play for them. The Oyston sued fans and criticised them for defamation, and have since presided over a further 2 relegations. Blackpool, finally, was put up for sale in 2017. 4. Venky's by Blackburn. Every fan thinks their club has the worst owners, but Blackburn supporters may just be right. In 2010, Venky, an Indian chicken and animal vaccine corporation, acquired Rovers for just over £40 million, with the club £20 million in debt. Blackburn had been Premier League champions just 15 years earlier, and Venky charmed fans with talk of ambition, before sacking Sam Allardyce, the coach who had never been relegated, with the club in 13. They appointed Steve Keane, who had never managed before, and began searching for a marquee signing, but with seemingly no idea of what was actually possible. Venky's offered Ronaldo 130k a week to move to the park, then tried to loan in David Beckham, before ending up with 30-year-old Roque Santa Cruz and Ruben Rochina from Barcelona's B team. They eventually finished midfield, and the next year got relegated to the Championship. Average players were given superstar wages, with the club spending 115% of their income on player salaries, and going through another 6 managers in 5 years. Venky's had to put £100 million more into the club, but it was too late, as they suffered demotion again in 2017. 3. Danielson. If you're going to pay a world record fee for a player, you better be sure he's good. And if you're a club the size of Real Betis, doubly so. The Seville side made a statement of intent in 1998 when they bought Brazilian winger Danielson for £21.5 million. £2 million more than Ronaldo had cost Inter the previous year. Danielson was 20 and had already won the Copa America, but he was also a one-footed step-over merchant who was more concerned with looking good than being good. Betis, having finished 8th the year before the wide man arrived, came in 11th in his first season and got relegated in his second, with Danielson contributing 5 goals in nearly 70 games. He ended up a World Cup winner thanks to a bit-part role in Brazil's 2002 squad, but his club career got worse and worse, with time spent in France, Saudi Arabia, the USA, Greece and Vietnam, where he did the first notable thing since his big transfer, becoming the highest paid player in the history of Vietnamese football. Betis have not spent more than $9 million on a single player since. 2. Thiago and Neymar's release clauses. There are disadvantages to spending almost a decade as the best club in the world. Barcelona's extraordinary success between 2004 and 2013, a period in which they picked up 6 league titles and 3 Champions Leagues, made the Blaugrana think that nobody would ever want to leave them, but they received a rude awakening. Thiago, the 22-year-old future of their midfield, had been handed a new contract 2 years earlier with a €90 million release clause. But a clause in the agreement, negotiated by Pere Guardiola, Pep's brother and Thiago's agent, said that if Thiago failed to play at least 30 minutes in 60% of Barca's league games, his release clause would drop to €18 million. A bargain for a youngster who just won the Under-21 Euros for a second time and had been named player of the tournament. Pep, arriving at Bayern that summer, told the club he only wanted Thiago, and the Spaniard was on his way to Germany, leaving Barca with Jonathan Dos Santos and Alex Song to cover Xavi and Iniesta. And Barcelona just didn't learn. 4 years on, despite a rising transfer market, they left Neymar with a buyout clause of €220 million, wrongly assuming that no one would pay it, and he'd refuse to leave even if they did. Tell us how that one worked out. 1. Alexander Kokorin. Once linked with Arsenal, Alexander Kokorin was a highly rated 22-year-old back in 2013, after hitting 13 in 26 for Dynamo Moscow. That season he was rated #1 in his position in Russia, and Angie, funded by billionaire Suleiman Kerimov, paid his €90 million release clause to add him to a squad already featuring Willian, Lastiara and Samuel Eto'o. However, Angie's spending had taken them beyond even the means of Kerimov, with Gus Hiddink managing the team, Roberto Carlos their sporting director, and Eto'o alone commanding a wage of nearly $400,000 a week after tax. Just a month after Kokorin arrived, the club announced that there would be a period of financial restructuring, and the entire squad was put up for sale. A day later, Kokorin returned to Dinamo, having never played for Angie, and with him went former Chelsea star Yuri Zhirkov. Kokorin had been away from Dinamo for just 34 days. In the following months, 28 players left the club, including 13 who had only joined that season. The side went through 3 managers in 2 weeks. Their average attendance dropped from 13,000 to under 10,000, and they went from 3rd in the league in 2013 to 16th, rock bottom in 2014.
Congratulations, you've reached the end of the video. Your award, the face of the poshest man in Football Daily. For more great content, why don't you click in this box here, and as always, don't forget to like and subscribe.
I cast this ball.
Captain. Justice reigns from above. Heroes never die.
Score 0-1.
It took him a while to get to Barcelona after many years of a rumored move, but once he got there, Neymar played some of the best football of his life. And when the opportunity eventually came for Neymar to embark upon his own journey to become the best player in the world, and make a pretty penny in doing so, he took it, leaving behind Barcelona for PSG. But things have soured in Paris, and now he wants to leave PSG, and PSG want him out. What's up, I'm Adrian, and today we're going to look at why Neymar left Barcelona, where things went wrong with PSG, and whether there's truth to reports that he's on his way out of the French capital. By the way, I have an in-depth player bio on Neymar, everything from his early childhood to his youth career to his glory days at Barcelona and everything in between. I'll link to that in the comments, alright? Shameless self-promotion, done. Let's go. At the beginning of August 2017, after a good few weeks of speculation, it was revealed that Neymar would be leaving Barcelona to join PSG on a massive 5-year deal that would not only bring with it a ridiculous boon to his bank accounts, but would give him the opportunity he had craved for a while, to be the main man at a title-winning team, to get out of the unavoidable shadow that Messi casts over Barcelona, and to cast his own. Paris, most notably PSG, provided that opportunity. His ambitions of course matched up with PSG, as they saw his signing as the biggest sign of intent they had shown yet, in order to win the Champions League and establish themselves as a genuine European superpower. Domestic titles have come easily to PSG in recent years, having won 6 of the last 7 Ligue 1 titles as of 2019, with their ownership group, Qatar Sports Investments, craving a Champions League title just as much as Neymar had been craving to stand alone as the main man at a club. Note the wording there, at a club, as it seems like it doesn't really matter which club for Neymar. As pointed out by Sid Lowe in an article from August of 2017, perhaps what epitomized the gigantic shadow that Messi casts was Barcelona's historic remontada against Neymar's future team, PSG, from March of 2017. As Lowe notes, while Neymar was the one who should have been celebrated for his heroics in contributing to the historic comeback, the lasting image from that match was of Lionel Messi surrounded by Barcelona fans as he stood on the adboards triumphantly. When Neymar was celebrated, it often wasn't solely about him as he had craved, but about the MSN trio that he was a part of, alongside Messi and Suarez. Second fiddle to Messi, and seen as part of a trio instead of the Barcelona player. This, despite Neymar filling in and performing well for an injured Messi on quite a few occasions. If he was to go to PSG, he would be the star of the show, and in his mind, would put himself in good position to eventually overcome Messi and Ronaldo as the best player in the world, so long as PSG's experiment went as intended. As the rumors grew and Neymar didn't state he wanted to stay with Barcelona, Messi, Suarez, and famously Gerard Piqué tried to convince Neymar to reconsider. Remember the Sequeda memes? But despite their efforts, on August 3rd, 2017, it was announced that PSG would trigger his €222 million buyout clause through Neymar himself, making him by far the most expensive player of all time. That same summer, Kylian Mbappe arrived from AS Monaco, and thus Neymar fell into another talented attacking trio alongside the young Frenchman and Edinson Cavani. At least this time, Neymar was undoubtedly the most talented of the three, but Cavani still had the love of the PSG faithful for his many years of service and devotion to the club, while Mbappe, being a Paris native and the hottest young attacking talent out of the country and in world football, he instantly gained the admiration of the Paris faithful as well. While Neymar was loved by PSG fans in his own right, the concerning reports about his attitude in training, such as not taking sessions seriously under Unai Emery, receiving special treatment from the staff that isn't afforded to other players, etc., and on the pitch, there was a clear divide between himself and Edinson Cavani, as Neymar famously wrestled the ball away from Cavani for free kicks and penalties on a few occasions, with Dani Alves even helping Neymar to do so on one notable occasion as well. I mean, it shouldn't have been a surprise that he was acting this way and prioritizing himself over his teammates, as that was clearly his intent when moving to PSG. There was a feeling that Neymar didn't hold a ton of respect for the domestic competition, despite helping PSG to a domestic treble in his first season. Well, until about February, that is, as he went out injured with a metatarsal injury one lap later. as well. So upon getting injured, he was left with a choice. There was a temporary solution which would have allowed him to return to his club for the rest of the season, at least in theory, or the option of a surgery which would rule him out for the rest of the season, but would have him return in time for the 2018 World Cup. Neymar chose the latter, and his first season at PSG would end in February after helping the club with 28 goals from 30 appearances. After a 2018 World Cup where Neymar played quite well most of the time, but was undoubtedly more known for how often he would be seen rolling on the ground. I mean, it even prompted the Neymar Challenge worldwide. From that World Cup, Neymar returned to PSG alongside his World Cup champion teammate Kylian Mbappe, ready for another shot at the Champions League under Thomas Tuchel, who told Neymar that he wanted him to get the ball close to goal and allow him to do his thing on the pitch. He started the season well, going goal for goal with Mbappe, who was emerging as PSG's talismanic player, which of course would draw some ire from Neymar, I'm sure. Neymar was crucial in the development of Mbappe, as Marquinhos would say to the media. The Brazilian defender said, quote, "Neymar knows how important he is to Kylian, as Messi was important for him, and Ronaldinho was important for Messi," end quote. But as Adam White noted for The Guardian, Guardiola famously allowed Ronaldinho to leave so that Messi wouldn't pick up on some of his less desirable traits, such as his love for the Barcelona nightlife. So that leads to some fearing that Neymar's penchant for rolling on the floor, antagonizing opponents to draw in tackles and win fouls, and showing a lack of professionalism to opposing fans would rub off on a certain someone. These reasons led to the beginning of a rift between Neymar and the PSG-backed Room administration. When he arrived at PSG, he was afforded leniency and special privileges, but the more that time went on, the more that Neymar prioritized himself and his interests above the club, the more that PSG chairman Nasser Al-Khelaifi grew frustrated with Neymar's attitude. So after 2 seasons, we've seen Neymar miss considerable stretches through injury, which was frustrating for PSG from a sporting point of view because their massive investment didn't get them any closer to their goal of winning the Champions League. Instead, their investment has caused problems in the dressing room at times, lacked discipline. I mean, he's been handed match bans in both France and the Champions League. Now Neymar's frustrations have become apparent as well, as he has made no steps forward in his career since joining PSG. He's by no means elevated his status above what it was at Barcelona, and finds himself now unwanted at the very club that was supposed to serve as a pedestal to him to stand above the rest of football. Wait a minute. Unwanted at PSG? Come on. Well, yeah, it's true actually, as Al-Khelaifi had some strong words for his players on June 16th, 2019 when speaking to France Football. Quote, "The players are going to have to assume their responsibilities even more than before. It has to be completely different. They will have to do more. Work more. They're not here to have fun. And if they don't agree with this point of view, the doors are open. Ciao. I no longer want to have superstar behavior." Superstar behavior. You can't help but think that this could be directed at Neymar in particular, the guy who is constantly at parties. I mean, on the night of Mbappe receiving the Player of the Year award for the Ligue 1 season, Neymar was at Rihanna's party in Paris, etc. There's other examples. Basically, the common feeling of Neymar focusing more on elevating his status and brand seems to extend from the pitch to the professional world to his life outside of that as well. So the table was set for Neymar to leave PSG so soon after arriving. I mean, there were rumors of him moving to PSG simply as a stepping stone to return to Spain via Real Madrid, but those stories have cooled off a lot, with Neymar allegedly wanting a return to Barcelona. In mid-June of 2019, with Neymar out with another injury, reports began to ring out saying that Neymar had told PSG that he wants to leave the club to go back to Barcelona. According to Mundo Deportivo, a paper from Barcelona that honestly can't always be trusted, Neymar said, quote, "I want to go home where I should have never left." So a not so trustworthy paper, yes, but later, Barcelona's president Josep Bartomeu confirmed that Neymar wants to leave PSG during Frenkie de Jong's unveiling. Going even further than this, when PSG's new sporting director Leonardo spoke to the media about Neymar, he all but confirmed this, though he didn't mention that Neymar wanted to go to Barcelona specifically. Quote, "It's clear to everyone, but in football you say one thing today and one tomorrow. It's amazing, but it's like that. Yes, I have spoken to Neymar. I do not want to tell all the details of the conversation. We talked with his entourage too. Everyone knows everything. The position is clear for all participants. Neymar can leave PSG if there is an offer that suits everyone. But to date, we don't know if anyone wants to buy him or at what price. All this is not done in a day, that's for sure. PSG wants to rely on players who want to stay and build something big. We do not need players who would do a favor at the club by staying here." End quote. Well, that's some nice honesty from Leonardo there, confirming that Neymar can leave for the right price, which is not
Score 2-0. Switching sides. Prepare your defenses. Select your hero.
Walks. Repositioning.
Attackers incoming in 30 seconds.
I'm ready to go.
One. Attackers in. Defend objective A.
Let's try that again.
We're right in here.
Objective lost. New defense point. Objective B.
revenge.
Now show them.
Prepare. Select. Attack commences in 30 seconds. One. Attack commencing.
We're all.
भी परम वास्तविकता है।
Traveling to Horizon Lunar Core.
I'm on the objective. Come find me.
Positioning. Attackers incoming in 30 seconds.
This is my jam.
Play of the game. well. Prepare your defense. Select your hero. Attackers incoming in 30 seconds.
死の匂いか。よし。いつでも。
Attackers incoming. Defend objective A. Select your hero.
I will strike our enemies where they do not expect.
Attackers incoming in 30 seconds.
Teleporter online. I have the power.
Find me.
This is not your time.
You rescued me again.
Double.
I am ready.
Hello.
60 seconds remaining. Team kill. Objective lost. payload is score 2-3. Switching sides. Prepare to attack. Select your hero.
Among you. Yes.
Attack commences in 30 seconds.
Not my preference to see them personally, but I will see them done. Allow me to repair the damage.
Capture objective A.
Do what I say. Here it comes. Let's start the end. The power of destruction.
Up here.
30 seconds remaining.
This time, I'll finish.
Now or
Heroes
never.
never die. This will restore.
Ten seconds. Defeat. Play. 1. Round 1. Capture.
I will not waste this.
Taking objective.
Again.
Best round lost.
Experience tranquility.
Score 0-1.
No one can hide from my...
Heading to my sights.
Defeat. Play of the game. Traveling to Hanoi. Prepare to attack. Select your hero. Commences
Hello there.
30 seconds.
There's no chance we can take care of this quietly, is there?
We are
Commence. Capture object area.
Miracle of science. Further experiment. Once more into the breach. Once more into the breach.
Seconds. Score 0-0. Switching sides. Prepare your defenses. Select your hero.
Exploration is the art of discovery.
Attackers incoming in 30 seconds.
I'm looking forward to working.
Defeat. Play of the game.